In this video, we're going to look at how to find the area of two shapes. The first shape I have is a parallelogram. And parallelogram isn't that challenging. It's like a shape that you would have looked at when you were in 6th grade or in elementary school. It's similar to a rectangle. If you think of a rectangle that has just been slanted, so I have my rectangle, and the wind blew and it kind of pushed the object to the side, and that made my parallelogram. So if we go back to the formula of a rectangle, it's base times height. And the same is true for a parallelogram. But here's where the trick lies. In a rectangle, I can quickly find the corner, and if this was 9 and this is 10, my area would be 9 times 10. They try to trick you with parallelogram. So this is going to be 9. This we're going to say is 12. And this number here I'm going to say is 10. Now, when you are doing base times height, it's very important to remember that base and height are perpendicular. And this is the symbol for perpendicular. I find my upside down T. Now, the other way to find perpendicular is to look for the right angle symbol. Remember, when we deal with right triangles, there's always that square in the corner to tell me that it's a right angle, because a right angle means two pieces are perpendicular to one another. I'm going to take out my highlighter in pink. I'm going to highlight. Okay, so let me undo that. That wasn't a good color choice. Let me take my yellow. I'm going to highlight my height and my base. You notice that it makes that upside down T. Was 9 part of that upside down T? No, my upside down T goes here and here. So the two numbers that make my upside down T are 10 and 12. So I'm going to multiply those. Now, if you're really good at your math facts, that you know whenever you multiply by a power of 10, you're just moving over a place and filling it in with a 0. So 12 times 10 is 120. And this, because they didn't tell me if it was centimeters or inches, I'm going to put units squared. And the reason why it's squared is because I multiplied two pieces, a base and a height, two elements. So, to remember, a parallelogram is just like a slanted rectangle, but you need to be careful. My base and my height are perpendicular. They need to form a right angle. And sometimes you'll notice they'll identify it with a little square to help you out. Moving on, our next shape that we're going to look at is a trapezoid. Now, a trapezoid is tricky because, let me go ahead and put some numbers on here. Let's say this is 8, and we'll say this is 14, and I'm going to make the height 6, okay? Now, this is tricky because I have a T this way, and I have an upside down T this way. So I have two bases. So normally with a quadrilateral, base times height would be my formula. But I have two bases. So I need to make a compromise. And when your teacher looks at your test score, they make a compromise. They look at your first test, you might have gotten a 90 on, and the next one you got a 94 on, so your average is a 92. So I need to average my two bases. And to average them, I'm going to add them together and divide by 2 so that I get one base. So 14 plus 8 is 22, and when I divide it by 2, 11. The average base length is going to be 11. Okay? And now I need to multiply by my height, which is 6. So my area is 66 units squared. So because I have two bases, I need to make a compromise, so I'm going to average them. And if you remember from statistics, when you average, you add the two numbers together, or then you add the numbers together and you divide by the number of numbers there are. And then we multiply by the height. You may also see the formula is base 1 plus base 2 times the height divided by 2. Or they do 1/2 times base 1 plus base 2 times height. So that's what we did. We did half of my bases. I averaged them together. When I multiply by a half, it's the same as splitting it into two groups. All right, let's look at one more trapezoid because they are a little bit tricky. Okay, so here's my trapezoid, and it's not as pretty as the last one, sorry. and put in my height, and we're going to say this is 5, and we're going to say this is 11, and this is going to be 7. Okay? So I need to make a compromise because I have 2 bases. So I'm going to do 5 plus 11 gives me 16, divided by 2, which is the average, gives me 8. So the average base, because I can only have 1 base, the average base is 8, and the height is 7. 8 times 7 is 56, and it's units squared. Okay, now it's your turn to try on your worksheet.